What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Friday, January 19th, 2024, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 1:55 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and we currently have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert. And this comes after North Korea tested for the first time an underwater nuclear armed drone last night. Okay, so we have three Boeing E-6 Mercuries in the air right now and a B-52 Stratofortress nuclear bomber. Now, the E-6 Mercuries are responsible for communicating with our nuclear forces during a nuclear war. They're basically like a flying antenna. They can transmit what are known as nuclear attack options and emergency war orders, which are basically the orders to launch from the president. And they can also remotely launch all of our Minuteman III ICBMs if necessary. And so let me just show you guys where they are. So we have one flying over New Orleans right now. It took off from MacDill Air Force Base. And here we have the B-52 flying over eastern Mississippi, but it was doing loops here for a while in western Louisiana, okay? And then moving to the north, we have one E-6 flying over South Dakota right now. And then we have the third E-6 flying over Utah. Okay, so U.S. nuclear forces are on high alert. We also have massive amounts of reconnaissance going on in Romania. And what you're looking at here are three reconnaissance planes and an aerial refueler that were flying along the Romanian Black Sea coast earlier today. Here's a closer shot. You can see they were all doing loops near Romania's Black Sea coast and near Moldova. So I don't know if Ukraine is planning something big soon in Crimea or if Russia's planning something big like another missile operation against Ukraine. But this is extremely unusual. We had a British RC 135, a US RC 135, a NATO AWACS plane, and a US aerial refueler keeping all these planes refueled. So, very unusual. And the EU's top diplomat, Joseph Borrell, said he wants to impose a Palestinian state. And the Israeli defense minister told the U.S. defense minister today that Israel was nearing a decision on what to do with Hezbollah. The U.S. moved two nuclear bombers from Dias Air Force Base to Singapore and conducted an exercise over the Sea of Japan with the Japanese Air Force as a show of force to North Korea last night. And this was shortly after North Korea tested that underwater nuclear armed drone. And Ukraine hit a massive fuel depot in Russia with drones last night. And UN nuclear inspectors are still not being allowed full access to parts of turbine hall number 6 in the giant Ukrainian nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia. And the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, held a phone call with Biden for the first time in 27 days. And two kabooms were heard in the Yemen port city of Hodeidah this afternoon. Presumably, another U.S. operation was launched. And what you're looking at here are some pictures that were released by North Korean state media, and it shows this nuclear armed torpedo or nuclear armed drone swimming through the water and detonating. And apparently, they tested an actual nuclear warhead last night on this thing. That's what I would imagine. If they tested it, that means they must have detonated a warhead underwater. So this is huge. You can actually see the water here coming up. So it looks like this is a copy of the Russian Status 6 Poseidon, but maybe on a much smaller scale. But this could still be used against South Korea during a war to contaminate coastal areas of South Korea with radiation. If they salt the warhead with cobalt, it could contaminate an entire coastal area for a decade and cause massive amounts of damage to critical port cities and critical military ports as well. So this is extremely concerning, guys. Okay, North Korea basically has a nuclear armed underwater drone or torpedo. We don't know the details of it yet. We don't know, how uh, far it can go or what size warhead it can carry. But this is very concerning, and this comes after North Korea tested an intermediate range ballistic missile that was solid fueled and had a hypersonic warhead. So they tested a hypersonic warhead. They tested this underwater nuclear armed drone. And then they also tested a solid fueled ICBM just a few weeks ago. Okay. And I do expect them to test a massive nuclear warhead very soon, guys. Okay. North Korea said Friday it has tested an underwater nuclear weapons system under development in response to the latest joint maritime exercise between South Korea, the United States, and Japan. North Korea's defense ministry said it conducted an important test of the Hail 523 in the East Sea, denouncing the drills as reckless military confrontation hysteria, according to the Korean Central News Agency. Our Army's underwater nuke based countering posture is being further rounded off, and its various maritime and underwater responsive actions will continue to deter the hostile military maneuvers of the navies of the U.S. and its allies, a spokesman of the North's Defense Ministry said in a statement carried by the KCNA. South Korea, the U.S., and Japan jointly conducted naval drills involving the U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson between Monday and Wednesday, following the North's latest launch of a hypersonic missile. Okay, so we were doing joint drills with South Korea and Japan with the USS Carl Vinson following their hypersonic test, and then they claim that they did this test as a response to that. And now we moved two nuclear bombers to Singapore, and we did a show of force exercise over the Sea of Japan with the Japanese Air Force last night. Okay, so things are really escalating in the Korean Peninsula, guys. We also quietly moved another aircraft carrier out to sea, and it's supposed to be going into the Western Pacific. The USS Teddy Roosevelt was supposed to stay at port for a few more months before being reassigned somewhere, but then suddenly they decided to deploy it to the West Pacific. So now we're going to have four aircraft carriers in the West Pacific. We already have the Carl Vinson. We already have the Ronald Reagan. Now we're going to have the Teddy Roosevelt. And there was another one. I just can't remember the name of it. But there's two of them that just left California now. And we have two already over there. Okay. So that's going to be a total of four. And these nuclear bombers that were sent to Singapore, they came from the 9th Bomb Squadron with the 7th Bomb Wing and the 345th Bomb Squadron and the 307th Bomb Wing. And a massive fuel depot in Russia was hit with drones by the Ukrainian army in the town of Klintsy near the border with Ukraine. As a result, 4 fuel reservoirs are burning, and residents nearby have been evacuated due to imminent danger. And I saw the video. It's absolutely insane. I mean, just massive fuel canisters, probably, I don't know, 500,000 gallons each, just burning. Absolutely insane. And the IAEA visited the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine after being told they had to wait a week by Russia to gain access to turbine hall number 6. They were finally granted access, but they were still prevented from seeing the entire turbine hall by Russian forces. So that's pretty concerning. And here we have an official post by Pacific Command showing their exercise with Japan with those B1s. Okay, so here are the two B1s that were moved to Singapore, and here are some Japanese F-15s that were escorting them, okay, in this exercise. So there were 4 Japanese F-15s and 2 US B-1 nuclear bombers. Okay, you don't move nuclear bombers somewhere unless you're expecting things to really escalate. Want to just read to you a little bit more about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. This is coming directly from the IAEA. The International Atomic Energy Agency experts were yesterday granted access to the reactor hall of Unit 6 of Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant after previously having not been given access, Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi said. On Friday last week, the ZNPP had not given permission for the IAEA support and assistance mission to the ZNPP team to access the Unit 6 reactor hall, proposing instead that the team enter the area in about a week's time. However, access was granted yesterday. Director General Grossi welcomes this constructive step. While in the reactor hall, the team observed main components of the reactor, confirming the cold shutdown state of the reactor. While the team was present in the reactor hall, the operators transferred the operation of the cooling pumps of the spent fuel pool from one safety train to another. During a walk down to the other areas of Unit 6 yesterday, the team visited the turbine hall of Unit 6, but were once again denied access to some areas of the hall. The IAEA ISAMS team have been unable to access all parts of the turbine hall of each unit since October 18 of last year. Okay, so this is very concerning, guys. Why is Russia not allowing the IAEA to access all parts of these turbine halls, specifically turbine hall number 6? Are they hiding something? Have they rigged these turbine halls with charges? Okay, if let's say Ukraine launches a massive counterattack and they start pushing through southern Ukraine to take back the territory there, maybe Russia has a contingency plan that they're going to detonate these charges and melt down the whole power plant and create an entire area of contamination in southern Ukraine that would prevent the Ukrainian army from coming through and potentially going to Crimea or taking back that territory. It's very possible, guys. Okay, we know Putin has tricks up his sleeve all the time. And the Prime Minister of Pakistan is conducting an extensive review of national security regarding the confrontation with Iran. The Prime Minister called for a meeting of senior civilian and military leaders today, Friday, to discuss national security. And this update was sponsored by Patriot Supply. Guys, they have brought back their 25% discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewith.nyprepper.com. The link is in the description below this video. But this 3-month emergency food supply is freeze-dried, so it has a 25-year shelf life. And it's all contained within 6 rugged, water-resistant buckets. And free shipping is included. So again, use the link preparewith.nyprepper.com to get 25% off of the Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply. It's really a no-brainer. 25-year shelf life. You don't have to worry about your food preps going bad. You don't have to worry about rotating anything. And it's all contained within 6 buckets. So you can find the space to store 6 buckets, guys. And they also have a general store. If you click on the Patriot Supply logo at the top of the page when you get to preparewithnyprepper.com, you can access their general store. and they have all kinds of prepping and survival items for sale. They have MREs, they have survival seeds, they have potassium iodide, they have survival bars. So check it out. Prepare with NYPrepper.com to get 25% off of the My Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply, and the link is in the description below this video. And the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told his American counterpart Lloyd Austin on Thursday night that Israel was nearing a decision on Lebanon and the conflict with Hezbollah. Gallant said the country had a duty to restore security and return evacuated Israeli residents to their communities along the border. And although Israel would prefer to do this through diplomacy, it was prepared to do this through military force. A statement from the defense minister's office said, touring the Lebanon border Friday, Gallant speculated that as long as fighting continues in the south, there will be fighting in the north. But we will not accept this reality for an extended period. There will come a moment when, if we do not reach a diplomatic agreement in which Hezbollah respects the right of the residents to live here in security, we will have to ensure that security by force. Wow, guys. I mean, it can't get any clearer than that. Lebanese officials said Thursday that Hezbollah had rebuffed Washington's initial proposal for stopping clashes with Israel, including pulling its fighters further from the border, but remained open to U.S. diplomacy to avoid a ruinous war. Gallant's comments followed similar remarks by the IDF's chief of staff, Herzi Halevi, earlier this week, who said a war in the north in the coming months was becoming more likely. And I reported to you guys yesterday that the IDF's chief of staff told his senior military officers not to take vacations this summer, not to plan vacations, because a war with Hezbollah would not happen in the winter. And they were also doing a rehearsal exercise earlier this week. The Israeli army was conducting a rehearsal for an invasion of southern Lebanon, okay? Hezbollah official Mohammed Rad warned Friday that Israel is not prepared for war against the Iran-backed Lebanese group, saying that it is frustrated and embarrassed by its losses in the war against Hamas in Gaza. Rad said it is an honor for Lebanon that resistance groups in the country fight against Israel, and accused Israel of being the guardian of the arrogant people who plunder our wealth, control our waterways, impose their will on a number of our countries, and dominate us. He said that Israel was suffering defeat in Gaza and that it has failed to achieve its goals in every aspect, adding that the hand of the resistance will remain supreme. The Israeli enemy is forced to retreat and withdraw because it is tired and faces resistance that it did not expect, and it has frustrated and embarrassed all those who support it, he added. The Israeli enemy is not ready for war in the face of what the Islamic resistance in Lebanon has prepared for it. So strong words there coming from a Hezbollah official. And the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah said our readiness to repel aggression is high, and we are preparing for an aggression that may occur with a beginning and no end. And the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, Joseph Borrell, said on Friday that the only peaceful solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict included the creation of a Palestinian state, and he suggested that this might need to be imposed from the outside without Israel's agreement. Borrell, in a speech at the University of Valladolid in Spain, said that without international intervention, the spiral of hate will continue generation after generation, according to multiple Spanish media outlets. The actors are too opposed to be able to reach an agreement autonomously, Borrell said. If everyone is in favor of this solution, the international community will have to impose it. Wow, guys. Joseph Borrell showing his true colors right there. I mean, this is biblical, guys. This is just straight out of the Bible. Okay, the Bible says that all these countries will come against Israel and force Israel into a peace treaty. And we're seeing the beginnings of that right now. okay, with Joseph Borrell saying that they're going to impose a Palestinian state. Absolutely insane. And the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, just got off the phone with U.S. President Joe Biden, the White House said, in what was their first conversation in 27 days. There is no immediate readout from either side, but Hebrew media reports that the conversation lasted for nearly 40 minutes and was held in good spirits. And the French shipping company CMA CGM announced that they will start diverting their ships around South Africa instead of going through the Suez Canal because of the situation in the Red Sea. And the Jordanian foreign minister said Netanyahu condemns the future of the region to more conflicts and wars by rejecting the two-state solution. And the Israeli Air Force hit 12 targets today in southern Lebanon. Apparently, anti-tank missile squads were eliminated. And senior Hamas officials are meeting with Russia's deputy foreign affairs minister in Moscow today. So that just shows you the true colors of the Russian government, of the Putin administration. They are meeting with senior Hamas officials, guys, okay? And that just comes straight out of the Bible. The Bible says that Russia is going to lead an alliance of nations that will try to attack Israel during the tribulation period. They're going to try to launch a surprise attack on Israel and break a peace treaty. And we're seeing the beginning stages of that because Russia is a strong ally of Iran. They're inviting Hamas officials to Moscow. I mean, this is insane. And we have some footage coming out of Iran today showing an Iranian torpedo being moved to a port city in Iran on the Persian Gulf. Okay, so I don't know if Iran is going to try to sink U.S. naval ships and NATO ships in the Red Sea and in the area, but this is pretty concerning. I don't know if this is routine or if they're gearing up for a surprise attack on U.S. and allied forces and they're going to try to sink one of our ships, or maybe they're going to try to sink a Pakistani ship. I have no idea, guys, but I thought I would just share that with you. And here's a picture of the senior Hamas officials meeting with the Russian deputy foreign affairs minister. Absolutely despicable. And the Baltic countries of Latvia and Estonia on Thursday moved to terminate their legal assistance agreements with Russia, with officials from the two EU and NATO members giving Moscow's invasion of Ukraine as the reason. The agreements between the former Soviet republics and Russia came into effect in the 1990s and concern mutual assistance in common family and criminal law cases. So the Baltic countries are further cutting their ties with Russia. They've already started to evict a lot of Russians out of their countries. They've changed laws on Russian language. And Putin is definitely not going to be happy about that. He's already said that the Baltic countries are very hostile towards Russia. So this is why I'm very concerned that Russia could do something to the Baltics potentially this fall. And we had that leaked German government document that said that Russia was planning an attack on the Baltics as soon as this fall. Okay. And NATO is going to be doing a massive exercise in Eastern Europe involving 90,000 troops. And that's going to start next week, okay, on Monday. And it's going to last all the way through June. Absolutely insane, guys. And Russia is planning a massive offensive on Ukraine, according to the Institute for the Study of War, that's going to start in February, okay? And that's when I expect things to really heat up. So get prepared, guys. Things are just spiraling out of control all over the world. And the British military has carried out its first high-power firing of a laser against aerial targets, with the weapon using an intense beam of light to cut through drones. It's called the Dragonfire, and it's a line of sight weapon that can engage with any visible target at the speed of light, the Ministry of Defense has said. The ministry added that the weapon boasts pinpoint accuracy and uses an intense beam of light to cut through the target, leading to structural failure or more impactful results if the warhead is targeted. The laser has been fired at aerial targets for the first time during a trial at the Ministry of Defense Hebrides Range in northwest Scotland. Okay, and here's a picture of it during that test. Okay, so that's some of the latest breaking news that I have, guys. U.S. nuclear forces are on high alert. North Korea testing a nuclear armed drone last night. The U.S. moving two B-1 nuclear bombers. The EU's top diplomat saying he wants to impose a Palestinian state against Israel's will. The Israeli defense minister telling the U.S. defense minister that Israel was nearing a decision on what to do with Hezbollah. The U.S. doing a nuclear exercise with Japan over the Sea of Japan. Two nuclear bombers moved to Singapore. Ukraine hit a massive fuel depot in Russia. UN nuclear inspectors still not being allowed full access to parts of turbine hall number 6 at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Two kabooms heard in Yemen today, potentially another operation by the U.S. against the Houthis. And the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, holding a phone call with Biden for the first time in a month. So I will be back this evening with more breaking news. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon below so you get notified when I post these updates. And until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.